Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all an update to my Cardfight Vanguard Bruce deck profile for Post-Festival Collection 2022. We got a few new cards for the Final Rush Bruce deck in the latest Festival Collection 2022 set to overall help with the play style of the deck, which main focus is to just use Final Rush to get multiple attacks using your Grade 4 Bruce along with your original ride line, Diablo's Violence Bruce, depending on what Final Rush you can hit first. Really awesome deck for the overall playstyle that it is meant to do, and the Festival Collection just helps to further support that playstyle. So just like with the Seraph deck, big thanks to my buddy Jim for letting me borrow the deck for the profile. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So for the ride deck, our ride deck is pretty much the same. Our starter is Diablo's Innocent Matt, with this card being your go-to starter. When you rode upon and went second, you draw a card. Our grade 1 is Diablo's Bad Steve. When placed on rear, choose a card from your soul, call it to the back row front rear guard, the back row center rear guard, my bad, and soul charge 1. And if you are in Final Rush, this unit gets plus 5,000 on the rear guard. It won't happen as often for the rear guard play, but you can set up the soul even more with your Diablo's Anger Richard. When this unit's placed on Vanguard, put a rear guard into your soul and draw a card, putting the rear guard you placed out from the soul back in to then draw an additional card, with the last card being Diablo's Violence Bruce. At the start of your ride phase, you're in Final Rush, and when this unit attacks, if you're in Final Rush, you can soul blast 5 to stand all of your front row rear guards. So the rear guard stand definitely does help with that pressure of 5 attacks in one turn when you can set up that soul, which is what you're meant to do with a lot of the other cards you run in the deck to further support it. Now, it is the only copy of Diablo's Violence Bruce that we run. For the grade 4s, we're also running 3 copies of Diablo's Unrivaled Bruce. Now, the option for the soul buildup is great. You want to run 3, though, because otherwise multiple Bruces really don't do much for you. You want to open this card up in your hand to go into the grade 4, but otherwise you can stay on the Bruce and still play a pretty good pressure version of the deck with Diablo's Unrivaled Bruce at the start of the ride phase until the end of turn. You're in your Final Rush. And on the Vanguard Circle once per turn at the end of battle, this unit attacked. If you are in Final Rush, Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 5, stand all of your front row units, and this unit gets Drive -2 until end of turn. So just like the other grade 4s, it has triple drive as well for that pressure, but being able to restand your Vanguard along with your front row rear guards gives you 6 attacks in total during the turn for a better shot at also hitting 1 additional drive check. For the only other grade 3 that I run in the deck, I run 2 of the new Diablo's Diver Emmett. While this unit, when it's placed on rear guard, Counter Blast 1, choose up to one of your Vanguards with Bruce in its card name, and this unit get plus 5,000 to end of turn. If you chose a grade 4, you counter charge 1 and you soul charge 1. So the Power Plus can be an additional option to make up for the slight lack of Persona Ride that the grade 4 has for its pressure in hitting bigger numbers. Giving 18k with this card attacking alone is a pretty good number hit against your opponent's Vanguard as well. But the big play here comes to the fact that it'll make up for the counter blast when you counter charge 1 if you're on the grade 4 Bruce, and giving you 1 additional soul charge that can definitely be for the added play for this card. Moving on now to the grade 2s, I'm running 3 copies of the Diablo's Madonna Megan, with this card having a pretty simple effect when this unit attacks. If you're in Final Rush, this unit gets plus 10,000 till end of turn. So this can actually stack, being able to restand due to Final Rush of both of your Bruces. So once you're in Final Rush, swinging with the first attack to get plus 10,000, then the second attack to be 30,000 in total is a pretty good pressure unit for no cost at all for the Counter Blast or even any Soul Blast, being able to save all those resources for your Unrivaled Bruce. And then for the other grade 2s that we run in the deck, still running the 4 Diablo's Returner Derek. If you were in Final Rush, he gets plus 5,000. And once per turn, Counter Blast 1, put a rear guard into your soul. Choose one of your opponent's rear guards for every 4 cards in your soul. In that option, retire them. Then if you're in Final Rush, look at the same number of cards on the top of your deck as the number of cards in your opponent's open rear guards, and choose any number of units from among them and put them to rear, and then put the rest into your soul. This can be used to call out some pretty good units to set up, whether it be a power unit like me or a setup unit like Emmett. And then for some of the lower numbers, I'm also running 2 Diablo's Jet Hacker Leonard. With this card, if you were in Final Rush, it gets plus 5,000. And then if we attack with this card, in the battle, all of your opponent's units in the same column. And when this unit attack hits, you can soul charge 1. And if your Vanguard is on Diablo's Violence Bruce, choose one of your cards from your soul and call it to an open rear guard, giving you more of the pressure plays to use with some of your other cards. Like I said, they don't really require a Counter Blast or soul blast costs. The Leonard goes good also when you are stuck on the Violence Bruce. Otherwise, you won't be able to use the other skill for the pressure. But for the last of the grade 2s, I'm also running 2 copies of Diablos Boys Eden. If you were in Final Rush, it gets plus 5,000. And if this unit stood by a card effect, an additional critical, so whether it restands by an additional critical or just for that added pressure, you'll have that power along with the critical +1. And when this unit attack hits, you can counter +1 and choose one of your opponent's rear guards to retire it. So you can even hit rear guards with this card and still have it retire another rear guard if that attack hits. That's it for the grade 2s. Moving on now to the grade 1s. Running 3 of the Diablos Boys Nile on the rear guard, or actually on the guard circle. If an attack hits your Vanguard with Bruce and its card name this turn, it gets plus 15,000 shield. So this is more for a defensive strategy with the deck. So you have less cards to conserve in your hand. Being able to take 1 damage from your opponent and then have a 20k shield in your hand can help you to block a good number of attacks against your opponent, putting your Vanguard at 33k shield with this card alone for just in return of taking 1 damage. If you get a trigger, that's an added plus to guard against 43k attacks, and having multiples of this hand card to use means you can just guard with those attacks and save the Sentinels for some of the bigger attacks your opponent may have, or even their Vanguard attack. And I also run 4 copies of Protobulb Dragon for the recycle of cards from your soul. When this unit attacks or boosts, if you're in Final Rush, counter +1, put another rear guard into your soul, and choose a card from your soul and put it into your hand. So depending on what you soul charge, you can get some pretty unnecessary cards like Sentinels in your soul. So being able just to add them back to your hand to reuse is the main purpose of Protobulb Dragon. With the last grade 1 that we run in the deck are 4 Recusal Hate Dragon for the Sentinel of Choice, being able to have less, hand discarding when you guard with this card if you just have 1 or less card in your hand left to use. And then for the orders that we run in the deck, running 3 copies of Hellblast Full Dive. You play this card with a counterblast of 1, draw a card, choose a card from your hand, call it to rear. Then if you are in Final Rush, all your front row units get plus 10,000 to end of turn. This card can also make up for the lack of Persona Ride for your grade 4, giving your units an additional plus 10 power. If you use Megan, this card can hit 40k on her own. That's the immense pressure also along with the order, depending if you open up in your hand, and just being 1 additional card for you to draw into. Moving on now to the trigger lineup, we're going with the 8 critical for pressure. So we're running 4 of the Steam DVA Dragon for the soul charge buildup, potentially for your Bruce to hit some numbers, along with an additional plus 2,000 to a unit on the field. And 4 of the Diablos Girls My, I have the 1 Flinty Slasher in here, but it really doesn't matter for the generic critical trigger spot for the final cards here. And we're running the draw trigger for just additional hand power in this deck. So 3 Ruse Wildmaster Riley for the plus 5k shield. And for the heals, we're running 2 of the Diablos Girls Ariana for the generic shield power. And then 1 Uyanya and 1 Eufia for the additional restand shield power boost and the additional critical, having both these options available when you're guarding against your opponent, with the over trigger being the Galmaga Held for the option early game to have the additional critical and power for your Vanguard on each one of its attacks. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. It's a pretty awesome deck. Bruce keeps getting support. I don't know if we'll see new support for it in set 6 or not, basically because, it's not really a character, Donji, for the Will Dress, or at least I didn't see him for the roster lineup. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.